Welcome back, everybody. We had some audio difficulties just a moment ago, but we're back now. It's time for SKT versus Samsung.
Yeah, it looks like I kicked something out, but we actually finally got it in. soO versus soO is going to be our first matchup here. We're going to start off with the ZVZ. I believe it's mostly mirror matchups here. Maybe all of them are.
We've seen a lot of that
ZVZ, PvP, TVT, and TVT. Okay, wow. We're going to have 4 mirror matchups potentially here tonight.
Possibly even 5. We don't even know what could happen in the ace match. But we saw a ton of mirrors yesterday. It feels like the Koreans have pretty much decided which maps are good for each race in Pro League for these best of ones.
Yeah, it's kind of turning out that way. I mean, you look at the first map, it's going to be Expedition Lost, C2 Zergs. I mean, a lot of people saying it's a Zerg map. You get 2 Protosses on Deadwing, no surprise there. Third map, it's going to be Coda, 2 Terrans. Yeah, I mean, it kind of makes sense. And then it's Echo for the 4th map, 2 Terrans once again. I thought maybe you'd see some Protosses, but, you know, it's not a bad Terran map either. So, you know, maybe they just had some extra Terrans they wanted to play, throw them on there for Echo. But, yeah, regardless, a lot of mirror matchups here. It's getting interesting.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, we saw a lot of mirror matchups yesterday, not even necessarily on all the same maps, but I guess different teams have different ideas about which, you know, which sort of race is stronger on the maps. But, yeah, interesting to see 2 Terrans on Coda. There's a lot of potential for aggression on the map because it's not a really long rush distance. So if you end up fighting a Zerg there and you get ahead, you can keep kind of parade pushing. And there's a lot of different reasons, I guess, why you would think that Terran's the race to pick. You also have to keep in mind which players of your opponent's team are strong that might come out on the map as well.
Yeah,
each team has strong players for each race.
Yeah. Well, here are the matchups here for SK Telecom T1 versus Samsung Galaxy Con. It's going to be soO versus Solar to start things off. Then we got Classic versus Deer. Then we go into Innovation versus Bravo. And then we got Dream versus Reality to finish things up for that ace match.
Yep. Bonnie Research Station will be the ace map. But to start things off with Expedition, then Deadwing. So the Deadwing PvP, we've seen a lot of those recently, and they end up going longer a lot of the time. Seen Phoenixes become a bit more popular here in Korea, but they're still not the norm. But we're almost seeing them like every other game.
Yeah, about that amount here. I'd say even like 60% of the time. It comes out very, very often these days. Players even trying to rush out of Stargate to get extra Phoenixes on your Protoss opponent. It's pretty interesting the way that matchup is going these days. So PvP not that kind of awkward, boring matchup that some people think it is. Yeah,
I mean, I enjoy it a lot. It's changing. It's changed a lot. It's going to be really interesting in Legacy. I played a bit of that and watched a bit of that recently when I got back from Tokyo. Will Innovation overcome his slump in the Pro League? We'll see.
That is the question, Wolf. And also, will Solar be able to show his ZVZ like he did at Gfinity? Actually heard about that. He played a lot of ZVZs and did quite well.
Yeah, well, this is what Solar is famous for, is doing well in a matchup for like a short period of time. Everyone thinks he's the best in the world at it.
Yeah,
and then
like his ZVP, and then he came back and got wrecked a bunch of times.
Yeah, it's like as soon as he has as soon as everyone thinks he's the best in the matchup, that's when he stops doing well.
Well, we're going to talk to our coaches now from both these teams. See what they have to say. What did you think when you saw the entries today and saw all the mirror matchups?
동족전이 나올 확률이 좀 높다. 지금 3라운드 들어와서 지금
He actually expected that there would be a lot of mirror matchups after looking at the maps.
좋은 맵들이 좀 갈리기 시작했어요. 그래서 그거를 그대로 쓸 것인가 아니면 뭘 만들어서 그거를
In this round, it tends to be that some races have certain advantages on certain maps.
초반이라서 그런지 다
So it will be hard to avoid mirror matchups here in Korea.
동족전이 많이 만들어진 것 같습니다.
네. 그 송명훈 플레인 코치도 이번 엔트리에 대해서는
And he says that's why he thinks there are a lot of mirror matchups recently in Pro League.
Kind of just echoing what we just said, basically.
어떤 선수가 어느 맵에 나올지를 많이 고민했는데 일단 엔트리로 확인하고서
So talking to Stork now, when I saw the entry, I thought that I kind of figured those players were going to come out on those maps. I thought a lot about like players I wanted to send out. It's going to be a lot of variables here in the mirror matchups.
그리고 사실 또 최은성 감독에게 또 궁금한
Well, I'm hopeful that we're going to get a good result. It's really interesting that in both coach interviews we had today and yesterday, the coaches like to seem to put some emphasis on chance in mirror matchups.
선수들 자체가 그런 성향인지 관리가 철저한지 뭐 이런 거에 대해서 좀 궁금해하시는 분들이 많더라고요. 어떻게 생각하시나요?
He's saying soO is doing really well in Pro League. And what do you think about soO as a player?
고참 선수들은
He's a veteran player for our team.
조금 머리가 굵어지기 때문에 컨트롤이 힘들 수도 있지만
And
윤수나 도우가
since he's been a gamer for a long time, it's kind of hard as a coach to control him. But he's thankful that soO listens to him very well. And he's been a pro gamer for 7 years. And there's not much for me to tell him. I can't really control much. He knows how to practice. He knows how to be a pro gamer. So he's just kind of letting him do his thing. And it's working out. Who's the scariest player on Samsung? He thinks the coach is the scariest player. The playing coach of Store.
코치를 좀 당황시켜야 팀이 흔들리지 않을까 생각합니다.
충분히 지금 당황시켰다고 생각하십니까?
He says they need to shake the coach in order to shake the whole team.
말하는 게 동족전이고 선수들이 되게 열심히 했다. 그리고 이길 것 같다. 그런데
the Samsung coach feels confident going into today's match, says the SKT coach. But honestly, he thinks they are the weaker team today. And he says they are trying to provoke because we are actually the stronger team. But our mentalities are not going to be shaken. They will have a firm grasp on their mentals today.
Holding on tight. See if Stork, he has one chance to reply here. I admit that SKT is a really strong team.
SK를 상대로 2승을 한 적도 있고 저희 팀이 잘 이겼었거든요.
But when I practiced as a player, I had 2 wins against SK Telecom players myself. And also, I was very strong against SKT in Starcraft 1, so I have a lot of confidence playing against them. They've got some history. And that's why I was optimistic what he was saying before.
송병근 플레잉 코치 다시 한번 감사합니다.
감사합니다.
네. 자, 오늘 양 팀의 그 감독과 플레잉 코치.
I like what the SKT coach, what Uwe was saying actually, where he's like, oh, you're the weaker team. You're just trying to provoke us and trying to get us to get all riled up and not be focused. And we actually see that very often from the coaches of what we would call the weaker teams in these coach interviews, I would say.
Yeah.
They're always trying to be like, oh, you know, they're a good team, but, you know, we've seen a weakness in them, and we're going to exploit that today. And then the other coach is like, no, you're not. We're going to kill you.
Yeah.
When they usually do.
Yeah. What's really interesting to me is the weakest teams seem to not do this though. Like if you look at Prime, even if you look at like Choya, who's had some struggles in recent times, he usually just talks about his own players more than talks about his opponents.
Yeah, that's true.
It's these middle teams that end up getting the trash talk.
Middle guys like Spanu maybe, or like Samsung themselves.
Yeah.
I think Samsung's like the perfect example of a middle team right now.
Yep. They lost a lot of great players before the season started, but well, soO 5-0 versus Zerg, 8-3. Upwards arrow couldn't go any further up. Might as well be pointed slightly to the left, man. Might as well
or
go
it should
back.
be like a little bit longer. You like put another red arrow down there. If anyone won like 10 in a row, I think you gotta do that. It would be pretty sick.
He needs to have a gold upwards arrow. Like the upwards arrow needs to look like a mushroom cloud, like a nuclear bomb just hit.
Yeah, man. Notably, these 2 players actually have a lot of history together. I think it was soO, right, who lost to Solar at Stockholm, right?
I don't remember the exact event, but yeah,
I believe it was. And one of those finalists, or one of those finals for soO, where he got 2nd place as well in his big streak of 2nd place finishes.
Yeah.
But since then, soO has gone up and up and up, whereas Solar going the exact opposite direction, straight down. He is 1-10 this season of Pro League, 0-5 against Zerg, and just not looking nearly as good as he used to be now.
No. 1-10 is pretty terrible of a record to have. I mean, that's pretty consistent. It's like that's enough games to be like you've been fielded consistently and you failed consistently.
Yep.
He's had a lot of trouble in these matchups where people prepare well. He does well overseas when there's no preparation. He's an endurance guy. I don't care who my opponent is. I'm solid. I'll beat you. But when it comes to preparation, he has a lot of trouble.
Whereas soO himself is very, very strong. And let's take a look at the predictions here. Let's see what everybody thought about this matchup. It's a 6-0 for soO over Solar. Not too surprising for where these two players are right now. Not at all.
Not at all, man. Especially soO's flawless record versus Zerg in Pro League. That's like the one thing you think about before you think about anything else.
Yep. Well, let's jump into game number 1 here between SK Telecom and Samsung Galaxy Com. soO versus Solar. Up here in the top right in the red for SK Telecom T1, it is soO.
Oh, we know that, Quacka. On the bottom left in blue. And Solar for Samsung Galaxy Con. There's Frodo.
Suegoya. Saying he's the best.
Frodo is a very famous character in Korea because he's one of the stock emoticons you can use on the Kakao Talk, which is like the WhatsApp or Viber or whatever app you end up using to text your friends in Korea. So he's a very famous character that all Koreans know. And the GG girls like to use these characters in their signs and their cheerfuls, as we've seen in the past.
Yeah, they're pretty cute. They've also got Quacka, as you said before.
Quacka's real name, well, the makeup girl told me before, but I forgot.
Is it like Muzi?
Muzi's the rabbit.
Okay.
I got that from the Burger King, the little Burger King promotion they had.
I don't actually know who Quacka is. It's just Quacka.
Quacka is what Team Salmon calls him because he looks like a Kappa face, but he's a Quacka.
He's a duck. He's one of he's one of those emoticons for Kakao Talk. I love that guy. He's got 3 really good faces too.
The best one is the one that's just in parentheses hopeful.
Yeah. I love that one. Also Crack Up, which is Quacka. The original Quacka.
The original Quacka. I love that like the three of us know this. You know, Team Salmon knows this. Me, Moonglade, of course, but like there's only probably a very small percentage of our audience.
There's one guy out there. He's like, oh yeah, I know Quacka.
No, there's at least like 10 guys out there who are like, I know exactly what they're talking about. I use Kakao Talk and I know these. I know like a bunch of nerds out there are like downloading the app right now. It's a really good app.
What the hell is Quacka?
You should use it. It's good.
Who's that duck? Who's Frodo? I don't care. I only watch this for the Starcraft. Well, let me tell you guys, Quacka's a great guy.
I don't know.
You should download Kakao Talk.
I don't know if the GG girls are really supporting the players. I don't know how they support so many different players in one day. Well, they just pick one that they like. Can't believe they draw the Kakao emoticon. They should have drawn a Banshee or even a Wraith because I don't know why Blizzard wouldn't make the Wraith back in StarCraft 2 and where's the Goliath and I just don't know. The Lurker doesn't really feel like the Lurker in Brood War. I don't think they're really trying. What else can I complain about today?
You're going really deep with that one, Wolf. The never-ending complaint. But yeah, maybe we can like throw a picture up there of one of our chats where we put hopeful, the 3 of us like when we're talking about something. By the way, for Twitter, I'm at Brandon Valdez. He's at Proxy Wolf. Moonglade's at Moonglade AU. Shout out to Moonglade's Twitter. He's probably watching right now.
Oh, I know he is.
Moonglade.
Hi, Moonglade Quacka. Oh, look at this. He's going to deny the scout. This has been like a really, slow-paced early game with a pool first into hatches. And now we see a gas coming up for both players. Slightly delayed for soO, but both of these players using the drone to try to deny scouting here. And ooh, actually, no, he's just running that drone away. The Lings will actually get the scout off here. Whereas soO's Lings are denied.
Ooh.
That's a really good scout.
Yeah. Sees the exact gas timing when it finishes.
Yep. And that's really important. He knows he's going to have his speed much faster. Although he doesn't have the money to buy it yet. And he is continuing to mine with 2, I believe. Let me check that. Yeah, he's 2 drones and gas on Solar's gas back at home. So he's building up quite a bit of it. I wonder if he's got some sort of attack plan here. Whereas soO, with the later gas, we don't know what he's going to do once he hits that 100.
We've been seeing a lot more Mutaplay these days. I think we saw a very similar build here where they go like very slowly into gas, and then eventually you just hit this timing where you got like 150, you make your lair, and then you take all 4 gases on 2 base. and then you go and you drop a Spire right away and you get out a bunch. We saw Life doing this a lot.
Yeah, and look at this. They're both going for lair. soO a little bit later, but he's adding extra gases right away to make up for that gas deficit because he, doesn't have it fast enough.
At the same time, solar, he just sticks on one gas. He's not going to add those. Oh, as I say that, he's going to add 2 right now.
A bit later, though.
Yeah, but at the same time, he does have an Evo Chamber and a Roach Warren.
I think he might try to hit with like a +1 Roach timing or something like that. I mean, just based on what we've seen so far. There's a Roach Warren for soO coming down just a little bit later. These two have scouted each other pretty well with Overlords, Ling Pokes, and the like to know that there's no big attack coming. They don't have to worry about, some sort of crazy Speedling all in. There's no Baneling Nest. So they're very aware this is going to be a quiet, slow early game. When you and your opponent both go pool first, it's like you kind of know that the other person is respecting you and you're just like, all right, well, I guess this is going to be a bit of a slower early game. Let me kind of get my lair out quick and get some of these additional upgrades. So, I mean, we see the upgrades for +1 are coming out at like almost the exact same time. It's slightly faster for Solar. He also gets the Roach speed faster and is powering up those Roaches pretty quick.
Yeah, look at that. It looked like Solar did want to take the gold out on this map. soO will know about this, but can he punish it? That's the question here.
Well, he's definitely going to know about it. Even if he pushes those Lings away, this is starting to look pretty obvious, right? I think that Solar wants to do a big attack. I think he's going to just send some of his drones as gold base. He's not going to make too many more drones. He's just going to try to rally Roaches across and end it. At least hit the third base very, very hard. Just based on how he's kind of positioned himself here.
Yeah. Kind of cool idea on this map. soO kind of just going for the safer third base. He's going to get it farther away from his opponent. But at the same time, kind of weak there on the left side if he's not paying attention. He's got some Overlords over there, though, so you will know if any kind of counterattack is coming his way.
Oh, this is tense. soO's, making a ton of Roaches, but he's going to have a normal third base with no significant Harvester lead, so he's just simply going to have a worse economy temporarily.
Look at this big supply block for soO. I was taking a look at this. These guys are almost exactly even on every single unit. Even the drones, the queens, and the Roaches and stuff, but I was thinking in my head, it's going to come down to macro for these guys, especially with that gold base coming into play. And soO kind of dropping the ball slightly. Let's see.
Well, this is going to be a pretty even fight. +1 for soO, not done during most of it, though, so that actually is going to hurt him quite a bit. The Roach count was very similar, though. Transfuses and some reinforcing Roaches that are about to join will push Solar back, but that was a good trade for Solar in the first step of many. This gold base isn't being mined from it all. It is going to just kind of be a reinforcing point. He's going to be able to get Roaches rallied across the map much faster. If soO could actually kill these rocks and collapse them, it would actually do him a lot of good to stop this push. But he doesn't know how much Solar is really going to commit to this yet, so he's obviously got a lot to think about here about whether he wants to do that. And finally, the drones are at this base. That's going to give a huge boost to Solar's economy right now.
Yeah, that's really big. soO slightly ahead in drones. He's up 8. Somehow, like, squeezing them through, and he takes a good defense there with that one small fight we had. And it actually looks like Solar's going to break the rocks for now. Maybe he'll go back and kill the ice towards the back door. I want to point at sometimes.
I want to point out that even with the gold base, soO has consistently been ahead in mineral income this entire time. I've been watching that on the tab. So that drone count makes a huge difference. It really does. 6 drones ahead. It's actually enough to. When you've got also 3 bases, it's better to have the drones than just having the gold.
Yeah. And that just makes this game just incredibly even. Like you said, continuing with that drone lead is soO. He's up 9 now even. Solar getting the slight lead. And the upgrade starting for the +2 at the same exact time, but soO's going to be the first guy to go for the Contaminate. He's going to delay that upgrade and maybe can hit some kind of +2 timing.
I'm just looking at that income tab again. Like, this is something I've liked to study for a long time. It looks about even now with the 10 harvester deficit. It looks like maybe the calculation hadn't factored in the minute of time. It needs maybe a minute to calculate that, the exact, like, how many minerals per minute are coming in and whatnot. So I may have misspoken there. I always want to give you guys like the most information possible on this sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, the base here is a great forward position. That's part of the strength of this. It's not just about the money. It's obviously there's some other extra factors with this. If you can hold this gold base, when you want to take your 4th, you can take it further away from your opponent, so it's farther away, harder for him to attack you. Whereas if soO wants to take a 4th, he's going to either have to take the one that's really far to the left, which is, further away but somewhat more vulnerable, or if he wants to take his gold base, it's easier to attack in the late game when you're both maxed out. So just some things to think about.
Seems like soO is going to be the first one to go for Burrow and Burrow movement here, going for those upgrades. But soO following suit finally breaks that rock tower down. And breaks the rocks that fell from the rock tower. And so he's got that open up here. soO just playing very passive, as is soO. Neither player really trying to even do any harass. Just playing the big macro game here, sitting back, waiting for their opponent to attack. I mean, looking at soO's position here, he's just going to keep the concave and take more bases and get up his economy. He has no real reason to attack with the position he's in.
Sure. This is, like we were saying yesterday, or as I was saying, things get a bit roachy sometimes in this matchup, and that's what we're seeing here. It's a lot of contamination. We saw yesterday even spore crawlers being built to stop this. We're seeing this actually affect the Burrow movement and the +2 attack for both players actually quite significantly. But because they've done it to each other about the same amount of times, it's still pretty even, these upgrades.
Yeah. And even taking a look at larva counts and the bank, they're almost exactly even. Like, this game is about as even as it gets in a mirror matchup.
Sure. All right, Burrow movement is not yet done for soO. Not an important thing in a fight like this. Concave is all that matters here. +2, not ready for soO, which I think is part of the reason why soO is going to try to trade some of these roaches out. Notice how he fights a little bit, then pulls back so he can actually maximize the concave a little bit.
Yeah. Never really fully commits. He's
really
just poking at these roaches.
Really good control out of soO here. Incredibly done. Always fighting until he ends up funneling, and the second he funnels, he pulls back. He fights again, and he funnels, he pulls back. Every time, and he has the upgrade advantage. There is a little bit of harassment going on, though, at the third base, and he's starting to lose some harvesters, I believe, over there.
Yeah, there's a queen and a spine crawler dealing with it, but at the same time, soO's just remaxing and only roaches. Once again, very, very even. You look at the roach counts here. This will be finally cleaned up. That harass going on at soO's third base.
soO is just microing this so much better. He's absolutely abusing this position here. And he's getting better trades. And eventually that's going to give him a better bank. And he's going to be able to eventually wear down soO. soO does kind of finally push through the better roach count that he has. His upgrades have finished. And with even upgrades here and the defender's advantage and so many of soO's roaches being weaker, soO starts to push this back.
Yeah. Once again, very, very even. Very even. soO, it looks like he kept up his macro a little bit better back at home, too. They had very even banks, but soO's got more roaches popping out. You can see the difference in the supplies, and more roaches pouring across here. It looks like soO's getting a very slight advantage.
soO literally just microed better in a fight that happened constantly, plus upgrades.
Yeah. And look at that. Even Goops there on the hatchery, delaying that larva count. Getting soO just a little bit farther ahead, and once you start that snowball using the same exact units, it's really hard to get back in the game. Now dancing the roaches. He's like, you defeated me in that one finals. I defeated you here at Pro League.
The things that soO did to get ahead were very subtle, but very impressive. GG. Contamination more consistently. Stopping that +2, so taking a fight with +2 for longer. Playing with classic hair. Then was able to just fight in that concave. And notice how every time he moved back, it was a minimal movement. If you want to look at that fight and go back and look at like the movements that soO made back and forth, they're very slight. Whereas when soO moved, he often moved his whole army, and he moved it in much like taking 2 steps versus taking 5 steps with a roach means you lose a whole attack. Every time you lose an attack, when we're talking about roaches versus roaches that do so much single target damage, you're losing so much DPS, and you're going to end up losing the fight eventually.
It was actually a really beautiful micro. I love that you point that out because it just seems like he was more active with his roaches, just to add on to that a little bit. Like, when soO was trying to move into a better position, when he was on move command, soO was actively attacking, like, doing a little bit of extra damage to the front roaches, and he just kept taking, like, slightly better and better trades just because of his army movements. It wasn't even really about the concaves there. They were pretty equal concaves.
Yeah, but every time soO started to funnel a little bit, so where he was going into the concave, he pulled back, but just slightly, just barely, because if you take too many steps while your opponent is shooting at you, you're going to take too many hits. soO sometimes moved a bit too much, and that was like it was a very small, better micro that we saw from soO there. It was really cool to watch, actually. Even though I think a lot of people think roach versus roach is boring to watch, I feel like when you see like the subtleties of it,
it's
pretty
about
cool.
the little things.
Yeah.
And also cool to see soO sit down right next to Dark and have a little chat after that game. He's like, oh yeah, I'm a boss, man. You taught me everything. Who knows what's going on in that house, man? I mean, Dark was able to take down Life recently in the Kespa Cup.
Yeah.
So definitely some ZVZ secrets being traded around there in the SKT house. Both of those guys looking really fantastic in the matchup right now.
Absolutely. Well, Classic versus Deer is going to be the next match. One of those matches that could go either way, but I feel most people are favoring Classic based on his recent successes.